right. All right, guys, we're going to get started here shortly. This is Davion with Shot Tracker. Give me a couple seconds and we'll be ready to go.
That fish tank is looking nice back there.
You like that, baby? That's my 220.
Oh, yeah.
Water. All right, let's go. All right, what's up, everybody? This is Davion Ross, co-founder of Shot Tracker. And tonight, we got my main man, Charlie Torres. And, man, I'm so excited to have Charlie on. Charlie, welcome. Why don't you say hi to all the Shot Tracker crew?
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
That's awesome, man. Well, Charlie, we've been getting a ton of questions already.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that we get all these questions in. We got about 20, 25 minutes.
Yep.
So why don't we go ahead and go get started? And the first thing, I want to take the first question.
Yep.
So tell me about the process you and your team went through, because y'all won the championship last year, right?
Yep, we did.
That ship. So tell us a little bit about what you put your team through and the whole process for you guys to win that championship.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I think shooting is the most important skill in basketball. So therefore we did a lot of it, and we have a lot of kids, from the lower level teams that come and they help rebound for our older kids. And, you just honor that process. So every day before practice, we have like a 6 a.m. shooting session.
Wow.
And, our whole varsity team comes in at 6 a.m. and they're all accountable to be there on time and be locked and ready to go and get up these shots with a lot of the drills that we have on the Shot Tracker.
Wow.
And with that being said, we shot 15 of 30 from threes in the state championship game.
So tell me this. The thing about this is that you guys, 15 from 30 in a championship game, that means you had to be putting up so many shots through the whole process and to get to that point, because, you don't just go in a game and shoot 15 from 30 without putting up a hell of a lot of shots.
No, we do a lot. And the funny thing is, with a product like Shot Tracker, you can monitor all these shots through players. We don't have that. We didn't have that type of technology last year. If we could have done that, we could have documented the whole thing.
Yeah, no.
It's crazy. Our 6'8" 5-man, he hit 5 threes. Our 6'7" 4-man, he hit 4. And our guards, they always hit threes. But our bigs, 1 through 5, they all shoot threes. That's what we do.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, okay, I'm going to take some questions from the crew. The first question I want to talk is from Handle Life Mike. He was asking, Charlie, tell us, what is your favorite move?
Favorite move? I like shooting at a triple threat. So I like catching, 22 feet away, 3-point line, just jabbing, getting my guy off balance and shooting without even dribbling. That is my favorite. You think of Melo and Kobe and, those guys back in the day when there was a lot of isolation. That's what I like to do.
And well, the cool thing about that is that if you do that and you get them on their heels, then it opens up a whole bunch of opportunities for your game, right? Because if they back, you hit the J. If they get up on you, you go around them, or you get that jab step that you like to do.
Yeah. And that's it. It would probably be that and like a hesitation pull where you're faking the crossover and then you go into the shot.
That's awesome.
It's pretty much those. That's what I do.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's keep it moving. Handle Life 20. And this is Handle Life 20, you're asking some political questions here. His question is, do you believe rankings matter? And do you think going to showcases is even necessary? Now, Charlie, that's a very that's a loaded question there.
It is loaded. It's fine. I just think you have to do research on the camps you're going to, and you have to understand who else is attending those kind of camps. So if there's one player going to a camp and he's like a top 15 player, that's probably not a camp that you'd want to go to because they're probably just trying to showcase him and get other kids to put money into that camp to entice a kid that's not ranked to go, someone that'll pay because most likely that kid's not paying.
Goes back to the players and the payers, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, I'm going to go to the next question. This is from _D_snail. That's a very interesting name.
Yeah.
What's the most common mistake young shooters make?
I don't know. I think with shooting, you have to be confident. So when you're young and you don't have the strength to shoot, you got to go with what works for you. I've seen a lot of people do some crazy stuff, just to get the ball there. But some of them are successful. And we have one on my La Mirada team who's a phenomenal shooter. He plays exactly like Steph Curry. And he's a 5'8" little kid, but I mean, he is deadly at pick and roll, and I'm not going to change his shot. He's too accurate. I mean, this is a kid that hit 9 threes in a quarter and a half.
Wow.
So I think when you're younger, whatever it takes for you to get it there until your body's developed, then you start working on the right mechanics.
So you're saying that, get it there all you can,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to know your limitations. If you're not strong enough, put yourself in a position to be successful.
Exactly.
I see that a lot too. Young players, they want to go and shoot from half court, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to put yourself in a position to be successful is what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I changed my shot all the time. I'm making little tweaks. It's nothing that the common eye could tell, but I'm always trying to perfect my craft. In high school, I used to turn, and I used to, kind of shoot a bow and arrow like that because I wasn't that strong. Now I'm stronger. I'm right out in front. It's still a little bit low because I gotta get it there, but I made those changes and I went from like a 40% 3-point shooter to like, a 50 and, a crazy shooter,
Wow. That's great. All right, let's move on to the other questions here. This one's from John Wise. Any thoughts on endurance versus strength when it comes to shooting late in the game?
Yeah, I talk about this all the time with guys that I just shoot around with. One of them is a very good shooter, and he's also my business partner with my ISO company. But with me, I think as the game goes on, it's really just a balance of what's going to take for your ball to get there. You don't want to hit short. You don't want to hit the front of the rim. You're always trying to get it to the back of the rim. So as the game's going on, I'm always just trying to figure out what's going to make me get to the back of the rim. Sometimes it's a little more legs, which, I'm not going to lie, like with a lot of these NBA athletes, I try to tell them less legs because they're so strong and powerful. Less legs. I don't want your hips being low, locked in with your legs because that ball just comes in so fast. I want your shoulders back and just to shoot that thing as soft as you can. But with younger kids, it's always you're always kind of balancing it out, So that's a tough thing. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, no, that was a good answer because I mean, the thing about it is, man, is that one of the things that Clay answered in the last live stream was going game speed in your practice because what it's going to do is going to allow you to have better legs and better endurance later on in the game. And I think that's part of it, right? If you go hard in your practice, I mean, he even said, I try to go harder in practice than I go in the game.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how we rep it out. All the characteristics that go on in a game, you got a crowd, you got hecklers, you got coaches on you, teammates on you, wife in the stands, dad on your back, all that stuff, that's all on your shoulders. Aside from, guarding the guy you're guarding and trying to play team basketball. So with all those things, you're trying to create that environment when you're doing an individual workout. That's what you're trying to create. So if you go harder than that speed, you're probably going to be better, playing at a, 90, 90% in a game or 80%, you know, depending on how slow you can kind of figure out what pace is your pace. And to touch on that, that's what you're doing when you're working out. You're trying to figure out your boundaries. Okay, I'm pretty tired in this workout. I was pretty tired in the one before and the one before. And when I was tired, this was working for my shot. That's how I shoot when I'm tired. And that's a big thing that'll kind of get you, you know, people over the hump.
Yeah, that's powerful. So you're saying that if the more you work out and understand the dynamics of what you got going, you know what you need to switch on when you're tired. You know, as a younger player, that hey, I'm tired. I'm gonna have to put a little more legs, etc.
Yeah, whatever. It could be a harder snap. You know, it could be, you know, more drop of the hips and using your legs. I mean, some people do some crazy stuff. They'll use their offhand and flick with that thumb as they're stepping in. You know, it happens to me when I get tired and I'm shooting from an NBA range with NBA players. I do a quick burst in my legs. It's not a deep, you know, squat, but it's more of a quick fire, and then I end up throwing with that thumb a little bit.
Wow, that's interesting. So now you talk about NBA players. Man, you've got a pretty sweet resume when you think about all the people that you've worked with. I mean, what are some of those folks that you've worked with in the league right now? If you can say, that is, if you can say.
I think I can. I've just been blessed to be around such great guys. But, you know, Solomon Hill, Aaron Gordon, Derek Williams, obviously Clay, Stanley Johnson, and then, you know, a lot of the new rookies, Frank Kaminsky, Josh Richardson. I'm probably missing guys, but
yeah, you're definitely missing, because your resume is deep on cats that you work with. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to another question here. From Jonathan. How do you go about creating specific workouts for the players you train? What's the process that you go through to analyze that player and then create the best workout that's possible for him?
You know, so we start with little skills. So a workout, I always base it like 20-20, 60-40 or something like that. So I'm kind of basing it off, you know, all right, we're going to do like a layup drill. We're going to do like a layup ball handling drill. So like a finishing and a ball handling combined. And we'll do a little bit of that. Then we'll do a ball handling into a passing. And then we'll do a skill that keeps the player confident. And it's like a skill that he does in the game. So that's like, you know, refill pick and rolls for Clay, or, you know, curling off a down screen for Clay. And then, you know, that's like a 40% load. So we really rep those out. And then we'll rep out a read off of both of those plays, which is either a pass or a dribble take to the basket, or a post up into a back down. And then the last one is something that they really want to work on. So that's like another 20%. So that's something that they want to get better on, you know. And then we'll finish it with like the most game realistic environment we can do.
But most of the times, though, you'll go through and I mean, I remember there's been a couple times where you pulled up some film with me.
Yeah.
And showed me some stuff. So you're watching what they're doing in game.
Oh, yeah.
Basing those workouts based on what you see they need to work on.
Exactly. All the time. That's where that 40 and that other 20 at the end is all based off of. It's all based off of, you know, film work and talking and communicating with either the player or the coach, you know, because that's the thing I don't want to do. I don't want to step on, especially with the NBA players, I don't want to step on what a coach is trying to get out of them and what a player, you know, because there's always like, you know, a player wants to do this, but the coach wants him to do this. Now, if I'm conflicting with both parts, there's a disconnect, and that player's probably not going to play as much. You know, that's the goal, keeping the player on the court as long as possible and being efficient.
That's good stuff, man. That's really good stuff. So this one is a little bit more of a fun question.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the Warriors, which, I mean, what they're doing right now is like ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
It's sick. But other than the Warriors, who do you think has a shot at the championship?
You know, probably the Spurs, I think. I mean, I don't know. They haven't even, there's so many games left, but their style of play is so contagious with the team. And additions like David West and LaMarcus are crazy. And Kawhi's like, I saw Kawhi in the gym a bunch of times this summer, and he is a monster. He's a workhorse. Excuse me.
I think that's a good one, man. I'd have to echo that. I mean, the Spurs look good, and then you could never really forget about LeBron, right? He's probably going to be back there, especially given the strength of schedule in the East or the West versus the East.
That's the thing with those guys over there is they can kind of take games off.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that LeBron's hopefully he's listening, but that those guys out there, they can kind of take some plays off. And out west, these guys don't like each other. The Warriors don't like the Clippers. The Clippers don't like the Spurs. The Warriors don't like the Grizzlies. Portland's looking pretty. I like Portland a lot. I think they're going to be a sleeper in a little bit. But the Warriors play at such a high pace. I mean, they're starting their offense. They're reversing their ball once they get past half court.
Yeah.
That's tough to guard, especially with that many shooters. And I think the Spurs are playing at a faster tempo. What's his name's getting a lot of burn at the point guard.
Parker.
The Australian kid. What's his name?
I can't even remember his name.
Yeah, but yeah, he's doing his thing.
That's cool, man. That's real cool. So
Yeah.
now this is another good question here. Clay had a breakout year.
Yeah.
Going into the 14-15 season. What did you guys do over the summer that you could talk about that attributed to that breakout year?
Well, I think it was I based a lot of the workouts, especially that plan that I just told you about, 20-20, 40-20. Like that was like kind of based upon him because there were certain skills he was lacking that I wanted to, progress early on as a warm-up. So we did those, finishing, a little bit of ball handling and passing. And then we went into stuff that he's already comfortable with, and we wanted to tighten those things up and make him really efficient. And then the next thing was adding some new stuff to his game and perfecting some of his post-up stuff. But, credit to him, we did probably 38 workouts from the time they lost to the Clippers to the time he left to Team USA. And that was just huge. Like, it wasn't – I didn't have to text him. It was like 11 a.m. I was at the gym. He was there. We rocked, and that's what it was.
Yeah, that's awesome. That dedication, man, and then having someone like you driving it is huge.
Yeah.
We got another question from John. What are the best exercises to complement shot repetition? I favor reps, but have a limited time and want to improve.
That's not like he's not talking about performance. He's talking about more like shots.
I think he's talking about everything, man. He just wants to know how could he complement. He he doesn't have a lot of time to shoot.
Yeah.
But he wants to figure out what are the things that he could do to really help his exercises to help with that repetition.
Okay. Well, you can do stuff at home. There's a few tricks I like to do at home just to like get up my reps. And that's, you get a piece of paper. All right. And in each corner you draw X through each, like you have an X on the piece of paper. All right. Now you put some tape on the back of that piece of paper and you put it on your ceiling. All right. And then you just sit there. If you're watching TV, during the game or even during the commercial, I like to shoot that thing up right at the X, work on my mechanics. And then what I like to do is get as close to that paper without hitting it. So I almost want to I kind of let the paper sag off the ceiling a little bit, so you can just barely brush it with the ball. Just so it can be nice and soft. And then second thing, for those people that want to shoot deep threes, you got to do a lot of fingertip push-ups. Like shooting it's all about these things being really strong, and that'll strengthen your wrist as well. And then last thing in the gym, if you're shooting by yourself, you kind of want to put a lot of pressure on yourself. You want to give yourself a little anxiety when you're shooting. So I like to do 5 in a row from 5 spots. So I can't go to the next spot until I make 5 in a row. And I try to finish all 5 spots. And once I finish 5 spots, I'll go to the NBA range, 5 shots, 5 in a row. That's kind of how I mess around.
Yeah, for Clay, he probably does that like nothing. If I did that, I'd still be in the gym. It would be 2020. I'd still be in the gym trying to get that done.
We did some really cool stuff right before he left to Team USA. I was up here in Oakland with him, and we did 5 in a row from 5 spots from the corners, and then from the wings, the slots and the point, we did all banks 5 in a row.
Oh, wow.
From NBA. So we did all banks, and that was really working on his touch and his strength and all that. And he didn't even struggle with that. And then another thing, when I was looking at his numbers, for shooting as well as he does, he didn't get fouled that much. He didn't get that many and one threes. So that was the year they lost to the Clippers, and Jamal Crawford was just getting fouled and hitting all those threes. So the cheerleaders were working out in the practice facility, and when they left these big thick mats. So I was just throwing him balls around the arc, and he would shoot and he'd fall and kick out his leg. And we'd be like, all right, make 5 in a row.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. All right, man. We got a couple more questions here, and then we're going to let you go because we want to make this quick and painless.
Yeah.
All right, this one's a little personal.
Yeah.
Did you have a perfect shot when you were younger? And did you help people learn to shoot when you were younger? And while you're talking about this, talk a little bit about your career, man, because you've had a pretty sweet career playing, overseas and that type of stuff. I seen you play. You got a little game.
I'm older now, man. But, yeah, see, the thing about being, a 90s baby, or an 80s baby, in the 90s when I was playing, it was really you didn't have all this information. Like, think about the stuff we're doing right now on Skype. It's crazy. So, I played in the league where there was a lot of pros, Jason Capono, Josh Childress, guys that could shoot. And I really liked Josh's game, and Josh had kind of a funky shot, but, that was someone I looked up to. So I shot like Josh, and that's how I shot. I was on the side, and I was doing that thing. And then I was pretty successful at it. I mean, I was all-area, all-league player there. And when I went to junior college, I started to tighten up a little bit. But it was still from the side. It was more like John Stockton. It was off the shoulder. And shot really well like that. And then when I went to Cal State Hayward up in the Bay Area for, college, I met Shea Frazee, who's, now my business partner. And he did a lot of film and analysis like that. And we saw what Steve Nash was doing at the time. And that's really what I wanted to, how I wanted to shoot, Ray Allen, Steve Nash type shots. And I started shooting right up the middle. I lined this right pointer finger up with my right eye, and that's where I started to go from. And, I flunked out of college, and immediately went to play pro in Mexico. And that's when I changed my shot. It was like a month period where I really bought into just going right up the middle. And I went to Mexico and I shot like 52% or something from 3. And, that was a big case because I'm a pretty confident guy, but to go from playing, Division III college to go really good guys, like Gustavo Ayón, who plays in the NBA some, and, ACB in Spain. He's a really big guy that can hedge the ball screen. And Lorenzo Mata played at UCLA, really good hedgers. Man, shooting threes over those guys, they were so big, I couldn't even see the rim. All I saw was their head. So I would aim just right behind them. So, it's just a confidence thing. Shooting is confidence, and that's what we try to do in the drills. We try to get your confidence up and then break it down a little bit, make it a little harder, and then build your confidence back up. And, it's just a process. But if you can shoot, you can play anywhere. That's the way this game's going. That's it. That's why this product is such a beautiful thing.
Man, that is awesome. And I appreciate you being very open, right? Because, You know, we're seeing athletes from all over, and I think you're an inspiration. Just like how Clay's an inspiration based on what he's accomplished, you're an inspiration, man, because just seeing what you've been through and your knowledge and you know, I've had the luxury of seeing you work out people, and it is impressive, you know. I mean, I think back, I'm like, if I had Charlie, wow, I would have, instead of averaging 17, I think I would have like 27 a game.
You know, Charlie thinks that too. Yeah.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that love.
I think that all the
time. Okay. This is. By the way, somebody on Twitter said moms everywhere are hating the paper on the ceiling drill.
That's funny.
But hey, I bet they're not gonna hate when they use that scholarship money to buy a boat because they got that basketball scholarship. All right, I got one more question from Pac-Man. Do you teach players to look at the front or the back of the rim when they shoot?
You know, people ask me this all the time. The main thing I don't like is ball watching. Like, you know, I don't want you to shoot, look at your ball, and then look at the rim. So I really don't care about the front of the rim or the back. And this is, you know, this is a hard part with being a trainer. You know, what works for me might not work for you, and it might not work for Clay, and it might not work for Aaron Gordon or Stan or Frank. You know, it might not work for some of these guys. But my job is to tap in and figure out what's going to work for you. You know, so that's kind of the hard part. That's why I like pre-draft so much, because I'm always trying to figure it out on the go as fast as I can, what's going to work for them.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I shoot, I kind of see a blur. I don't really see the back. I don't really see the front. I just kind of see what I'm trying to where I'm trying to get that ball to go, you know?
All right.
That's come out of the net. So, but I think the back of the rim, you know?
Hey, man.
It's just kind of,
bro, we appreciate you being honest. I think your point there was huge, though. No ball watching.
Yeah,
that's start that as a hashtag. Hashtag no ball watching, everybody.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. And you know, I think gosh, what was I gonna say? There's another good point too. About the back of the rim. I don't know. I kind of lost it.
It's all good. Yeah. All right, man. Well, here what? I want to say thank you. Well, our time is up. I think you brought a wealth of knowledge to the audience. And guys, most of the drills that are out there that we did with Clay, they came from Charlie. So go in there, check out his drills. Charlie, I think you're launching a few more drills tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you'll be getting an email about it. So check out those drills, check out the videos, go hard, and I hope everybody keeps shooting. By the way, Charlie, was pretty cool that we're seeing people shooting thousands of shots. I think the cat on the leaderboard has already shot like 9,000 shots.
That's what it's all about. I mean, you have to enjoy what you're doing. I enjoy it. You know, my dad's always on my butt every day. He's calling. He's like, hey, why don't you go back and play? Why don't you go back and play? I'm like, you know, one, I don't like being away from home. And two, like, I love watching these guys live their dream. You know what I mean? I like propelling them to their goals and dreams. And three, if, you know, my dad's always bugging me, are you making money? Are you making money? I'm like, Dad, it's not about the money. You know, if I get to work with these guys, watch them do what they do, and I get time to go shoot a couple 500 J's a day, I'm a millionaire. That's it.
Awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody, I want to say thank you. Make sure next Sunday we got Colin from Shot Mechanics. This is Charlie's, your second expert. And I want to say thank you for joining. We had a good group on today. And keep shooting. Lots of wonderful prizes. So make sure that you capitalize and keep shooting that J. And we out.
Oh, hey, Dave Young.
Yeah, what's up?
This is what I was going to say.
Okay.
With shooting, you want to make it smaller than it is. All right. So you miss small, you miss small. Okay. And what I've been telling kids mostly is to work on the catch, work on the way they catch, and not focus on so much as what you're getting at the time.
Oh, man. What's going on here, man? Hey, Charlie, you just got video bombed, bro.
I know, man. I know.
Video bomb.
Hey,
Put on my pool table here, bro.
everybody. Yo, what's up, man?
Nothing. What's up with you?
Why you video bombing us?
Is that a what is that?
It's
A fish tank?
You like that? That's my 220 salt water, baby.
Nice, man. Well, Mr. Charlie, you got some decent knowledge to tell you.
All right, man. All right, man. Hey, thanks for the video bomb, Clay.
Yes, sir.
I'm out of here.
All right, D.
You were saying, man, before
Yeah.
you got disturbed by that reckless young man.
Exactly. You want to get beat again?
Yeah.
All right. It's more about the catch. You want to find something that's going to make shooting smaller than what it really is. So I've been just telling everyone to focus on the catch, not catching with their palm, because you don't want to dribble with your palm, you don't want to shoot with your palm, and you don't want to pass with your palm. So just that small thing really is helping people figure it out a little bit better. And that's
All
it.
right, that's great, man. Well, Charlie, say goodnight to the folks, man, and we're going to let you go.
For sure. Good night, everyone. Thanks. Some awesome questions. Get it going on Shot Tracker. Love seeing what you guys are doing. Davion, thank you.
All right, bro. I'll get at you later.
All right, sounds good.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a great night, and we're out.